We all feel like Baylor football is ready to take that next step in 2025. But let's just check. Is Dave Aranda the guy that takes them to the next level? Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Baylor bonus brought to you by Game Time, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show, Rogue Media Sports Network. My rogue colleague of the Pete Souza Show fame, Pete Souza, joins us.
Does that mean I'm a rogue colleague, or because we work together at the Rogue Media?
Well, I do work remotely, so I'm kind of a rogue. I'm the only Chicago-based employee of Rogue Media Sports Network that I know of.
By the way, it's about as cold here in Central Texas today as it is in Chicago.
So I've heard, man. We get a real feel of 10 up here. What do you got?
It's freezing. How about that? It's 30-something degrees out.
You can handle it. You're a Philly guy.
That's bullshit. Oh, sorry. Do we have to start again?
No, we're fine. We're fine. Okay. Anything worse?
I usually don't talk like that. Yeah. Sorry.
Just you don't usually talk like that when you're around your mother. Everywhere else, no, you're a pro. You're a pro. You not only do the Pete Souza Show, you do ESPN Plus, which will have you for Baylor Cincinnati Tuesday night, and you're also inside the 12, which is I didn't know until now basketball as well. Or until a week ago.
It's myself and King
as well, which is awesome. Big time Baylor feel to that. You're both Baylor guys in a way.
Yeah, no, we are kind of. I mean, I obviously am connected to Baylor. Just getting opportunities to start my play-by-play career again here in Central Texas, and it evolving into doing stuff, nationally. And King McClure, of course, who we all know is a Baylor guy, and he's a buddy of mine. So it all kind of came together. So it's like it's a lot of the show's a lot of fun. You can watch it wherever, like if you live in Central Texas, you can watch it. I know it's on Channel 10 here, but then all over the country, if you live in a Big 12 market, you can watch it and then watch it on the Big 12's YouTube page.
Love that. Yeah. Love that, man. It's everywhere. And I've seen you pour through the notes. Pete Souza is inside the 12, like really.
I mean, luckily,
I'm not kidding, man.
Luckily, I've been, with the Big 12 basketball season, doing a bunch of games, so I feel like I'm a little more locked in. It does help. Like I told them on the show, like, look, if I go somewhere, and because we could talk to coaches, so if I get to talk to Tommy Lloyd or Jamie Dixon, like, let me talk about that conversation, as much as I can, because that does give you some like inside feel. And King, as a player, I mean, he has that experience too. So it's a lot of fun.
We're going to get to hoops, by the way, because I think you're a big hoops guy too, even though you're a former college football player. But let's start with the gridiron.
Okay.
Bears, I want to get your take on this because usually we would talk every day in the studio. But the Bears kind of a sour ending to what was it doesn't take away from a really good season, but 6-game winning streak. I think they felt they were the more motivated team going into this game against LSU last week. Doesn't go their way. And it looks ugly at times. There's guys who miss the game for academic reasons, which is not a great look. And it just overall is kind of a sour end to things. And so people come out of the woodworks. I know you see it in the comment section. You see it on social media. These people that say, well, look now, Baylor didn't win a big game all year. They hitched their wagon to Aranda, and he's not the right guy. He's not going to take them to the next level. But you had Roy Philpott on the Pete Souza Show last week, who called that game for ESPN, the Baylor LSU Texas Bowl, and he talked a lot about Dave Aranda. And I'm kind of in a biased situation here, and I know you kind of are too, because we see every Baylor game, like we're in the weeds of it, and so we hear all the time other fans say how much they love and respect Dave Aranda. And, earlier in the year when they're 2-4 coming off a 3-9 season, we're kind of like, okay, we'll go and take him. And now after a 6-game winning streak, while it didn't get a huge national push, there still seems to be like a really positive air around Dave Aranda outside of Waco. So let me ask you this, as someone who obviously does Baylor coverage, but a lot of national coverage, a lot of Big 12 coverage. Do you think this is still the right guy and that Baylor will not only continue to win, but potentially even get better under Dave Aranda?
Yeah. I mean, and it's weird, my take on that, because I believe he will, but it's not so much because he's such a skilled coach, like X's and O's wise. And I think he does connect with guys. I think that he has made a decision to bring a certain type of player to the program. And we saw that this year. I mean, he was open about it when I talked to him earlier in the season when I was doing a game for ESPN. He was just like, look, it's a different type of player this year. He said it like in his own like quirky way. But it's just a different type of guy. And you could tell early in the season when those guys were all healthy playing together that they did have these amazing athletes. You could tell in training camp. And then early in the year, we talked about it on this show and then on your show, on the Rogue Media Network. Like, there were guys who were suspended at times. And that really had an impact on some key games. Like, if they don't have certain guys out of the lineup against Colorado, they probably win that game. And who knows, maybe the season doesn't take the shape that it does because they kind of bottom out after that Colorado game and sort of kind of rally.
2 more losses after that, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, that is a emotional low point.
It was definitely. But no, you bring up a good point. So I'll go back to my point about talent. There is a wave of talent that's already crashed into Baylor over the course of the past year. And a lot of that talent, by all accounts, is sticking around. Bigger names like Sawyer Robertson, Bryson Washington, Josh Cameron. Like, that's quite the tentpole for new talent to continue to come in. I look at a guy like, and honestly, Cam, I'd be lying, I don't know his status, but like a guy like Michael Trigg, like that guy would not have been a part of this program 2 years ago, or the Baylor program. And he was
the person over player era.
Exactly.
Is what we'll call it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that era is over, the person over player. Like, now we're player. And, it worked in this like first year of it. So I have no reason to believe that the pedal will be taken off the metal. And I think that more and more recruits, like you look at what's going on in the transfer portal. I mean, they're getting guys that you can come right in and play. And
I do think it's worth noting.
By the way, I should mention Roy felt the same exact way.
Yeah.
Like you brought up Roy. He was, it's weird because you and I we've had these conversations all year because we're around Baylor, but it was really interesting to get a fresh perspective. And Roy was like, I just love what he's doing. I love the guys he's bringing in. And I think the guys are a big part of it, right? I mean, this is a really good Big 12 football team with athletes.
And it is worth noting, this is not like pre-McCartney, late 80s Colorado, where you bring the media guide for the witnesses to point out who attacked them. No, I mean, you've had Sawyer Robertson in studio. You've had Richard Reese in studio, Garmin Randolph, Matt Jones, like still really nice guys, good leaders.
Guys. It doesn't mean two things can be true at once.
And there's a chip. There's a chip now that you felt in this season for Baylor. Last year at 3-9, you could feel it kind of crumbling around all of them. And this year you have some guys who have leadership positions on this team who are maybe on their last chance or do have a chip on their shoulder. And it feels like you get different results.
No, it does. And I think you also have guys who guys believe in, like a Sawyer Robertson, like it starts and ends with the quarterback and he's the leader of the team and those guys will follow him anywhere. And that is pretty special. And to have that coming back is very special. And I think the chip is a real deal. I think that a lot of these guys felt like, I was surprised to see someone like Josh Cameron play as well as he did all year long and to surge like he did. But you mentioned he's got a guy with a chip. Like, they have guys like that. They have blue chips and they have guys with chips. That's a nice combination.
It's good. It's good. And I do get – this is kind of where we get into the weeds here a little bit, because even when this discourse is going on towards the end of the season of like, should Baylor have actually re-signed him? And that's the minority of the fan base, right? But there were people who would then come back and say, well, Baylor can't do any better than that. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I like the way Aranda's going and I like Aranda's style and a lot of things, but I don't think this is a situation where, oh, shucks, we can't do any better. We might as well just hitch our wagon to this guy. Like, you cover this conference. Would you look at Baylor in that light in this conference?
No, not at all. Not at all. I spent some time this weekend actually with somebody who there's the coaching stuff around other schools. It's just like here. I spent time with a guy, an Oklahoma State guy, really dialed in, talking about how they say the same thing about Mike Gundy. And people are there. There's also an unhealthy back and forth, right? Because then you get the one person that's like, we can do way better than Dave Aranda, like somebody who's unrealistic, right?
Yep.
Where's the next Vince Lombardi? And it's the same way at Oklahoma State. It's like, you know what, we've had enough of Mike Gundy. But then there's the other people that are like, well, let's just be grateful we have Dave Aranda. I get the feeling that folks around the nation, I mean, first of all, at the time, Aranda was an awesome hire. And so far,
slam dunk.
What's that?
Slam dunk.
Slam dunk.
You had this great historic team. This guy's had top 5 defenses everywhere, top 10 everywhere he's gone.
Yeah.
It made perfect sense.
And he's hit his first real snag, and he's overcome it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll give you another example of a program who thought like that, like the Oklahoma States. And it's so funny to think about now, even the pedigree they had back then, but especially now, 10 years ago almost, Georgia felt the same way. Georgia felt like Mark Richt can't win the big one, but we go up against Alabama and LSU and Florida. Are you sure we can do any better than this? And then they did. And then they really did. And it's like for Baylor, for Oklahoma State, while this may not be the time right now, I do take exception to fans that think that. I just don't think that's true.
Well,
running Matt Rule in their darkest hour. I mean,
no, I don't think so at all. I think Baylor is it's a prominent program around the country. It is, and I don't think it hurts. How successful basketball has been when you have the two of them there together that you look at. It's it's weird. That's how someone like you ended up going to Baylor. Someone from the New England area. I mean, it's got a real national reputation.
Let's talk some hoops, shall we, Pete? That's coming up next. We're going to preview Cincinnati and talk about a little bit what's going wrong with Baylor so far. That's next on Locked On Baylor. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Pete Souza, Inside the 12, ESPN, Pete Souza Show, live every weekday, 10 a.m. Is that right? 10 a.m. Central Time. Yeah.
10 a.m. Central.
Can't wait. With his, is that where you were this weekend in Salt Lake?
Yeah.
Utah Utes. I won't put you on the spot, but I don't know if they should count as a Big 12 basketball team. I know you are.
I'm
biased,
bummed out. I've seen them, of course, right? Of course, I get all the big games. So
I've
seen Utah twice. I'll probably do 15 Utah games by the end of the season. But exciting early on, but they're just not that good.
And it is I know a lot of their fans were kind of talking themselves into it because UCF had a decent year last year. Obviously, they didn't make the tournament, but they stubbed some teams' toes. They looked like they belonged. It might be a longer road for Utah.
Yeah, they don't look like. Honestly, I'll just say this: there's aspects of that team that just doesn't look like it belongs. And I could tell you last year, UCF, they had some dudes on those teams on that team, and they do again this year. I would never want to play UCF. It's just like Utah. Okay, we can figure. There's nobody that terrifies you on that team.
So you've gotten Baylor a couple times this year, including that conference opener against Utah, and pretty much every time you've done it, correct me if I'm wrong, blowout victory. They've looked good in each and every one of them. Saturday at Iowa State, which you could argue Iowa State might be the best team in the country, right up there. It looked rough. It looked out of sorts. Let me ask you this, Pete. I've been talking a lot about the identity of this team, and I'm still trying to figure out what that identity is.
Yeah.
Do you feel there is a set identity in this team that is going to win Big 12 games and they have some injuries? Or do you feel that it is a bit of an identity crisis?
Well, after the Utah game, I didn't think it was an identity crisis, but now I'm
No
back.
problem.
Yeah. Now I'm like, because honestly, I did Utah, Texas Tech, like we talked about. I really didn't know Utah was that bad. I kind of had a feeling, but I was like, wow, Baylor has gotten so much better with the practices over Christmas. But it was a bit of a reality check in Ames, and I think part of the reason that I believe there is somewhat of an identity crisis is that should not have been a game like. I asked Coach Drew point blank after that win against Utah, how do you get your team ready for Ames? And he was like, we already did. We took them to Washington State where they lost to Gonzaga. We played at Stores. Mm-hmm. So that was an element of that basketball game that Baylor should have been ready for. The crowd.
Absolutely. And the students weren't there in full force. And it's like it's also, and you're right, Scott does it in the preseason. They do it every year. So if you didn't get it in UConn, like I know you didn't play at Hilton last year, but you played at Fog Allen last year. You know what I mean? So even those guys who weren't here, you got it in Stores and up in Spokane. That's a good point.
Yeah. But I believe there's so much to be excited about with this team. And I do think like there's so much that goes on, like as far as learning and playing together, especially on the defensive end. There's some stuff you talk to guys. I was talking to a coach this weekend, a Texas Tech coach, who was like, the hardest part of all this stuff is like, the back end of your defense, right? Like, like on offense, you kind of figure it out. Where guys are going to be going up the floor. You get a feel, for who's open, who's not open, how to play with somebody. And even on defense, like on ball, like you'll make some calls and you'll figure it out. You'll communicate. But like the backside of the defense, like after the second or third pass, like that communication is like, it's iffy. And I think that we saw that with Baylor a little bit against Iowa State. Like the connective tissue is still being built, right? It's still getting stronger. And I think when that does, I think that the guard play and the athletes that Baylor has will keep them. And again, with Scott Drew, I mean, I think that keeps them at the very top of the college basketball landscape. I truly believe that, especially as the season gets on. I thought they got so much better, dude. I know Utah is a little bit sus right now, but man, over the course of those preseason games, and that's a tribute to Coach Drew in the practice time, they got so much better. It really did seem like last Tuesday, I was like, damn, this team is light years ahead of the teams that we saw take the floor earlier in the season, like at home and on the road. They just seem ready to go. And the one wild card who I think we should be excited about, who has been absent, even though he's been present, is Langston Love. Like, I feel like he's getting like real-time minutes. The bullets are flying. The more and more I think that we see him play, I think that he'll find a role in this team, but he's just got to keep playing and keep being a part of things.
The way you look at this as a fan or maybe even an analyst, do you think, though, that Langston Love is a part of this team come tournament time? Like yes. He is at 6 man.
And I think that needs to happen. Right now, he's not. Like, if the tournament started today, he probably falls out of the rotation.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about your team's identity and using the season to kind of find it. It's just not as turnkey as it used to be in all of college basketball. Like, this is who we are, boom. Outside of teams like Houston, like these teams are all sort of figuring out who they are. I mean, it's amazing, and again, talking to coaches now this year, this landscape is just more different than ever. And these coaches understand that's why they get paid the money that they get paid, and nobody's complaining, but it is a really, really different animal. Like guys that aren't playing or just kind of dropping off the face of the earth, whether they're leaving teams or entering the portal. And Baylor doesn't have that issue, which is like a really positive thing for Scott Drew and his team.
Let's talk Cincinnati, Baylor's next opponent, Tuesday night. You'll be on the call. That's 7 p.m. Central Time. 7 p.m., yes. Can't wait. Cincinnati, although I think they took one on the chin over the weekend, they
lost 2 straight for the first time all year.
Yeah. See, but they picked up some real momentum towards the end of last season. I think a lot of people started to take notice. And I was actually saying it on this show after they lost at Foster Pavilion at the end of January. So fairly early in the Big 12 schedule, I was like, these guys are tough. Like, these are tough SOBs down here. They've got a gritty, grimy way that they want to play, and they do it very well. Which usually really succeeds in the Big 12. The last few years, we've had to have that plus some high-end talent. But you look at the Cincinnati team, the way they play, they do have a star in Jizzle James, Edgerrin's son. Is this a dark horse team to win the Big 12?
No.
Okay.
I do not believe so. I believe, actually, and we'll find out more tomorrow, I have more questions about this team than I do answers.
Right.
So if I'm a Baylor fan, I think that this should be business as usual at home. You know, we're at Foster Pavilion. I don't care if this team has lost 2 straight and they're edgy or whatever. Wes Miller gets them excited to play. I don't look. They have talent. I love Dylan Brooks. Love him.
Mm-hmm.
I loved him at Texas. But I don't know if he's got like the dog. That a player of that.
Texas basketball usually doesn't breed that. So yeah.
No,
if we're being honest.
Yeah. But someone of that ilk, you would say, right? Like athletically, you want him to be like a tough guy. I don't know if he has that. And if you look at Cincinnati's schedule and some of the opponents that they've lost to, like they're not great teams. Teams that they've lost to, like Villanova, is not a good basketball team. I think they lost.
Which means DePaul might be the worst in the country, by the way. I almost texted you about that the other day.
DePaul is so bad.
I might go down and just walk in downtown Chicago.
DePaul is so bad. You know what we were talking about? I was talking this weekend. I got something for you that we can do at another time.
Okay.
Worst father-son coach in waiting legacies. Okay. Ray Meyer to Joey Meyer might be the worst. Like, when that happened, DePaul just
can I extend this? Can I make this progressive in 2025? Can we talk about the summits at Tennessee?
Oh,
it's not great. The Knights wasn't terrific.
No, now you're doing a good job. Yeah. There's a potential with one with the Samsons when Kelvin's done at Houston. Yep. That's one to look at. So they just haven't gone great. But anyways,
North Carolina football, the Belichicks. Yeah, we'll see.
Villanova's terrible, and that's that. But back
Cincinnati,
back to Cincinnati. This is a big
Cincinnati. Yes.
If I'm a Cincinnati fan, this is a huge. I'm very excited to see how this team plays because there's a lot on the line for a game that's so early in the season. I mean, you lost to Arizona at home. You came all the way back from 19 down, but you ran out of gas late. You held Caleb Love in check, which is one of those deals. It's like, all right, but everybody else still got there. So if you're going to – I get it. You shut down Caleb Love. I did the game last week where he had 33, 7 assists, 7 rebounds, and no turnovers. So they said, okay, we're going to lock Caleb Love down. They did, but everybody else got theirs. And Baylor, you can't pick one guy out to lock down. They'll just devastate you. I believe this Baylor team is very deep as well.
So real quick, before we get you out of here, I know you can't do score predictions. You're doing the game. Classy, Pete Souza.
No, I'm Darby Brown. Darby never did a score prediction.
Correct. And that's a good person to model your game after is Darby Brown. So how does Baylor? So you think this is going to be business as usual for Baylor? What do you need to see from them? What do you need to see from them that's different from Saturday that's going to get them the win? Like what Baylor does X.
I need them to do what they did against Utah. Get out to an early lead. There's certain teams where Baylor I don't think should be mucking it up or rolling around the mud with them. I think Cincinnati honestly is one of those teams, and I think at the end of the year you'll understand what I'm saying a little better than right now as it looks. But I think that you can't mess around. Get out. If you can, get a blowout and just move on and start focusing on those good starts, especially on the road. But, get started early. I would like to see, a lot of Norchad or Mir. I think
shooting two. Yeah.
Huh?
Shooting twos.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yes.
The more you go through him, I just think the better you are as far as keeping an opposing defense honest, allowing yourself the opportunity to shoot threes after people collapse on him. You need 2 people to guard him. When you come back and you're looking at Norchad, then you're in trouble.
I think that's still a way that Bears could win. You'll see Pete Souza. You'll hear Pete Souza Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, ESPN Plus, Baylor, Cincinnati,
I can't wait.
big-time game.
I
Then you
love
can-
Foster. I can't wait. Yo, are the students back for this one?
Oh, dude, I'm too old for that, man.
I don't think they
maybe.
are.
Well, probably not. See, when I was in school, this is the Monday we would be back, which is frighteningly early for college. When all my friends at UMass would go back after Martin Luther King Day. Yes, but I don't think it is anymore.
With
I don't
far
know that they'll
fewer
be there.
brain cells than you would, right? I mean, after the
Correct.
long break.
Sure. Yeah. Anyway, then catch him at 10 a.m. Central Time on the Pete Souza Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. If you stick around, you can hear me have some meltdowns too at 11. Pete, thanks for doing this. And we want you to like and subscribe. Follow the channel along. Get down in the comments below. Give me your score predictions, what you think about Dave Aranda, what you think about this Baylor game against Cincinnati. And then we'll see you tomorrow on your favorite program, Locked On Baylor.